Welcome everyone to another episode of Global Pulse. Today, we're tackling a question that's been lingering in the air, a shadow over recent headlines, something many people are genuinely worried about. Will there be a World War III? It's a heavy topic, I know, but one we absolutely need to discuss openly and frankly. Jane, what's your immediate gut reaction when you hear that question?
Don, it's funny. My gut reaction is a mix of dread and a stubborn hope. On one hand, you look at the news, the conflicts flaring up, the rhetoric, and it feels like we're constantly on the brink. There's a palpable tension globally, isn't there? But then, on the other hand, you also see the immense efforts by diplomats, the economic interdependence, and the sheer devastating cost of any major conflict, especially today. It's a real tightrope walk between fear and, well, a desperate optimism that cooler heads will prevail.
Absolutely, that tightrope walk resonates with me. Historically, when we talk about world wars, we're thinking of conflicts of unprecedented scale, involving major global powers, often with ideological battles at their core, and a fundamental reshaping of the world order. World War I and II fundamentally altered everything. But what does World War III even look like in the 21st century? Is it tanks and trenches, or something far more insidious, more subtle?
That's precisely it, Don. I think many people still picture a traditional, boots-on-the-ground global conflict, reminiscent of the last two, but the landscape has shifted so dramatically. We've got cyber warfare, advanced AI, disinformation campaigns, economic sanctions weaponized to an extreme degree. A World War III might not even be declared in the traditional sense. It could be a series of interconnected, escalating proxy conflicts, cyber attacks, and economic blockades that slowly grind the global system to a halt, without ever involving a single, cataclysmic declaration of war between major powers.
That's a chilling thought, but a very realistic one. Let's look at the current flashpoint, shall we? Obviously, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine is a massive one, drawing in global attention and resources. It's not just a regional dispute. It has massive implications for energy, alliances, and the very concept of national sovereignty. Then you've got the Middle East, which, let's be honest, feels like a constant powder keg, with multiple actors and complex historical grievances. And of course, the increasing tensions in the Indo-Pacific, particularly around Taiwan. These are all interconnected, aren't they?
They absolutely are. And what's concerning is how each of these flashpoints has the potential to draw in more major players. In Ukraine, you have NATO support, which, while not direct military involvement, is a significant line in the sand. In the Middle East, you have regional powers and global powers like the US, Russia, and even China all vying for influence, often through proxies. And with Taiwan, you're talking about potential direct confrontation between two nuclear-armed powers, which is an unthinkable scenario, but one that is openly discussed now. It's almost like a series of dominoes, and we're hoping none of them fall too hard.
The domino effect is a classic concern, isn't it? It's how many conflicts have escalated throughout history. A local skirmish draws in allies who draw in their allies, and suddenly you have a regional conflict spiraling into something global. However, there's also the element of nuclear deterrence, mutually assured destruction, or MAD, as it was chillingly called during the Cold War. Do you think that still acts as the ultimate safeguard, preventing any major power from truly pushing things too far?
I think it's a double-edged sword, Don. On one hand, yes, the existence of nuclear weapons means that a direct, all-out war between nuclear powers is almost unthinkable, because the cost would be the destruction of humanity. No rational actor wants that. So in that sense, it absolutely acts as a deterrent for direct conflict. But on the other hand, it might make conventional warfare and proxy wars seem safer, as long as they don't cross that nuclear threshold. And that's where the danger lies, because miscalculation, accidents, or even a desperate leader could misinterpret a conventional attack as an existential threat and push the button. The threshold is always there, and it's a terrifying one.
Miscalculation is the nightmare scenario. We've had a number of close calls during the Cold War where human error or technical glitches almost triggered a nuclear response. It really makes you think about the immense responsibility resting on a few individuals. Beyond the immediate nuclear threat, what about the rise of nationalism and populism that we've seen globally? Does that fuel the flames of potential conflict?
Oh, absolutely, Don. I think the rise of nationalism and populism is a huge contributing factor to global instability. It tends to foster an us versus them mentality, both domestically and internationally. Leaders who appeal to these sentiments often find it easier to demonize other nations or ethnic groups, making diplomacy harder and escalating tensions more readily. It closes off channels of communication and empathy, which are crucial for de-escalation. When every nation is primarily focused on its own perceived greatness and less on global cooperation, the risk of friction naturally increases.
And it also makes compromise incredibly difficult, doesn't it? When a leader has staked their entire platform on being uncompromising or strong against external threats, backing down even for peace can be seen as weakness by their base. That's a dangerous dynamic. But let's shift gears slightly. What about the economic factors? The world is so interconnected economically now. Do you think that interdependence is a strong enough force to prevent large-scale conflict? I mean, who benefits from destroying the very global trade system they rely on?
That's a compelling argument for peace, Don. For decades, the theory was that globalization and economic ties would make major wars obsolete because everyone had too much to lose. And for a while, it seemed to hold true. The thought of disrupting supply chains, crashing markets, and destroying infrastructure that benefits everyone is a powerful disincentive. However, we've seen recently that some nations are willing to absorb significant economic pain for perceived strategic or political gains. Look at the sanctions against Russia. While impactful, they haven't stopped the conflict in Ukraine. So, while economic interdependence is a strong factor, it's clearly not an absolute guarantee against conflict.
You're right, the calculations seem to have shifted. Or at least the tolerance for economic pain has increased in some quarters. And this brings us back to the idea of a different kind of war. If a full-scale conventional war is too costly, and nuclear war is unthinkable, then perhaps we're already in a kind of Cold War 2.0, or permanent gray zone conflict where the battles are fought economically, technologically, and through information warfare. Cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, intellectual property theft, election interference. These are all forms of aggression that can destabilize nations without firing a single bullet.
Exactly, and the lines are incredibly blurry. When is a cyber attack on a power grid an act of war? How do you retaliate against a disinformation campaign? It's not as clear-cut as marching armies across borders. This gray zone warfare creates a constant state of tension, eroding trust and making true cooperation incredibly difficult. It's like a slow burn rather than an explosion, but the cumulative effect could be just as damaging to global stability and prosperity.
It feels like we're discussing the erosion of norms, doesn't it? The international institutions, like the UN, were built on the premise of certain agreed-upon rules and a collective desire for peace after the horrors of WW2. But are those institutions still effective in preventing escalation today? Do they have the teeth to enforce peace, or are they increasingly sidelined by great power competition?
That's a really critical point, Don. The UN, for all its flaws, was established precisely to prevent future world wars, and for decades it played a crucial role in mediating disputes and providing a forum for dialogue. However, its effectiveness is often hampered by the Security Council's veto power, where any one of the 5 permanent members can block resolutions. This means that if a major power is involved in a conflict or supports one side, the UN's hands are often tied. So, while it still offers a vital platform for diplomacy, its capacity to prevent or decisively intervene in major conflicts seems to be diminishing, which is a scary thought.
It highlights the fragility of international law when push comes to shove. If the world's most powerful nations aren't willing to abide by the same rules or allow intervention, then what's to stop others from following suit? And this leads me to think about the psychological aspect for the average person. The constant headlines, the fear-mongering, the sense that things are spiraling. How does that impact society, and does that public sentiment play a role in either escalating or de-escalating tensions?
It's huge, Don. The human toll of this constant anxiety is immense. People are stressed, worried about the future, and frankly, a bit desensitized to the sheer volume of negative news. This can lead to 2 extremes, either apathy, where people just tune out because it's too overwhelming, or a hyper-nationalistic fervor, where they become easily swayed by leaders promising strong action. Neither of those is conducive to rational, measured responses to global threats. We need an informed, engaged, and empathetic populace, but the current information landscape often makes that challenging.
You're right, it's tough to stay engaged without being overwhelmed. So with all these complex factors, the geopolitical flashpoints, the new forms of warfare, the challenges to international institutions, and the psychological impact on individuals, what's your overall assessment? Are we closer to World War III than we've ever been since the Cold War, or are there still strong mitigating factors that will ultimately pull us back from the brink?
I think we're certainly in a period of heightened risk, Don. Probably the most precarious since the Cuban Missile Crisis, if we're being honest. The sheer number of simultaneous, serious flashpoints is concerning, and the erosion of trust between major powers is palpable. However, I still lean towards cautious optimism that a full-blown, traditional World War III will be avoided. The nuclear deterrent, as terrifying as it is, still holds immense power. The economic consequences would be so catastrophic for every single nation, even the aggressors, that it truly is a last resort scenario for even the most extreme leaders. What I worry about more is this gray zone conflict continuing, escalating in proxy wars and cyber warfare, making the world a more dangerous, less predictable place, but perhaps stopping just short of a direct global conflagration.
That makes a lot of sense. A slow burn rather than a sudden explosion. It's a sobering thought, but perhaps more manageable than the alternative. I'd add that human agency still plays a crucial role. Diplomacy, dialogue, understanding, and the relentless pursuit of peace by individuals and leaders who prioritize stability over short-term gains are still our best hope. It's not inevitable until it is, and there's always room to pull back from the edge. It's a continuous effort.
Absolutely, Don. And I think that's the key takeaway for our listeners. While the headlines can be alarming and the risks are real, it's not a foregone conclusion. Every diplomatic effort, every peace initiative, every step back from the brink counts. It means staying informed, advocating for peaceful solutions, and supporting leaders who prioritize de-escalation over confrontation. Complacency is dangerous, but so is fatalism. We have to believe in the capacity for human reason and collective action to prevent the worst.
Well said, Jane. It's a call to action for all of us, isn't it? To not just consume the news passively but to actively engage with the possibility of peace. Thank you for this incredibly insightful and frankly vital discussion today. It's not easy to talk about, but it's essential. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on Global Pulse. We hope this conversation has given you some perspective, and perhaps a renewed sense of agency in a world that often feels out of control. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into the issues shaping our world. Until then, stay thoughtful, stay engaged, and look out for each other.